All right. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Just to kind of give quick reference, I know I'm a little bit late to the game in terms of Pokemon Unite content. Although I've been absolutely enjoying this game by so much. I've been playing it practically every day. I'm at a pretty high rank too. Not quite masters, but pretty close to it. I'm in the ultra veteran area, which is still pretty high. And I figured it's better late than never to start posting this video. So here we are. So, anyways, without further ado, we're gonna get started with the video. In case you're not aware, in 2 days since the time of recording this video, so it might be like in 1 day after posting this, the patch notes are going to be coming out in, or at least a new version of the game is going to come out on the 4th of this month. Okay. Which will probably be tomorrow by the time I post this video. And within the new version of the game is coming balance changes to various different Pokemon in the game. And oh my God, I can't begin to tell you guys how much it's going to heavily impact how a lot of Pokemon and interactions are going to affect the game. And so much so that I really wanted to share the patch notes and just kind of go over it with you guys and give you guys my take on what's going to be changed and affected. So you can kind of already see some of them as of right now on the screen. I kind of blew up the page for you guys, so it's a little easier for you guys to see what's being affected. So first up, Charizard is going to be getting a bunch of changes. Okay, we'll go through them. So first of all, his flamethrower move, the cooldown is going to be reduced, so you should be able to use it more often, which is always a good thing. The effects of opposing Pokemon on opposing Pokemon is strengthened. Okay, so I'm not too sure what it means by effects, considering that a good portion of other parts of the patch notes will actually say damage is strengthened. Like it'll specifically say damage compared to like effects and stuff like that. I'm assuming that this means that the burn effect on flamethrower is going to be a little bit stronger. That the burn might actually be doing a little bit more damage. That's what I'm hoping. Will make the move just a little bit stronger in general. You get to use it more, and it's a little bit stronger. Good things. Fire Punch, effects on opposing Pokemon strengthened. Same thing. Anything aside from damage, I'm assuming is just going to be, aside from the initial impact, essentially, for damage, is going to be stronger. Fire Blast, the cooldown is going to be reduced. Means you can use it more often. Effects on opposing Pokemon is strengthened. Again, same thing. I'm assuming that's like the burn aspect, the damage over time and whatnot. Mostly the burn. I'm still not quite clear on what they mean by effects, so we'll have to see. It is the very first balance patch that they are introducing to the game, so it'll be a minute before we kind of understand what their terminology is for certain things. But overall, Charizard is getting a big buff on a variety of its different moves, which is a good thing because honestly, at least in the higher tiers, Charizard kind of is struggling a little bit. He, aside from his ultimate, which is actually pretty good in my opinion, the rest of his toolkit kind of is lacking. The biggest problem with Charizard, in my opinion, is the fact that he has to get a little too close in order to get value. And a lot of his ranged moves are very easy to avoid. Like Fire Blast, for example, because of the fact that it just stays on the ground. It's very easy to just walk out of and just kind of not really respect it, if that makes sense, as an enemy. Same thing with other moves like Flamethrower. It's just a lot of moves just require you to be too close to Charizard, and as long as you keep your distance, it's not a big deal. Especially since a lot of the best Pokemon in the game right now, at least in terms of like attackers and all-rounders and stuff like that, can easily get in and out of a situation or attack from a range greater than Charizard's range. That like it kind of doesn't matter what Charizard does. And other Pokemon that are close ranged kind of suffer from the same thing, kind of like Garchomp as well. Garchomp requires you to be very up close, that it can be pretty, for most players, pretty easy to just kind of like deny Garchomp from getting value. So the fact that you can at least do more with these abilities is a good thing. Whether or not they're actually going to make a big difference on Charizard, though, I think is probably going to be the ultimate question. Just because of the fact that, like I mentioned before, part of my problem with him is his range. His moves don't feel impactful enough. So we're going to have to see how this goes. Next up, we have Talonflame. I'm actually kind of excited for the Talonflame buff. Talonflame's kind of getting the Charizard treatment, where pretty much a good portion of his moves are just getting buffed. In the higher tiers, Speedsters don't really get used as much. Sometimes you might see like a Gengar or something try to get used, but for the most part, Speedsters aren't really that good. Just mostly because of the fact that Cinderace is kind of the king of the jungle right now. You'd rather have a Cinderace jungling just so that they can kind of over level compared to everybody else on the enemy team and kind of try and help carry the game essentially. And on the flip side too, you can also use Cinderace in lane at the same time too. So Cinderace is just kind of the god tier pick at the moment. You like have to have a Cinderace on your team in order to do well. If you don't, you're probably going to lose that game. That's just typically how it is a lot of times in higher tier games. So the fact that Talonflame is across the board, it looks like getting a damage buff to literally all of his moves, which is a good thing. The biggest question is how much of a damage buff, because that's honestly going to be the biggest factor in deciding whether or not it's even worth using Talonflame. Because ideally, okay, on paper, you would want to use the Speedsters as the primary junglers. Okay, that's kind of what their shtick is supposed to be. That's supposed to be what their role is for jungling. And when you have mostly attackers and all-rounders being used for the major portion of players' teams and higher ranked games, with speedsters and supports aside from Eldegoss, and I would say tanks as well. Although even though Slowbro still sees a bit of play, with Snorlax typically being the best one. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how this goes. It's just primarily going to be how much damage. Because if the damages end up being great enough that it can kind of rival some of the attackers, then that's going to be a good thing. That might actually make Talonflame viable, or at least usable. Whether or not he's actually going to be like A tier or anything, B or A tier, we'll have to see. We'll just have to see. They don't really give us damage. Then the biggest problem I have with these patch notes so far is they don't really give us like actual values, which I kind of hate, because it kind of feels like then at that point that we're kind of left as a community to kind of figure things out after every single patch notes, which is just sounds like a big pain. So hopefully maybe in the future they can give us actual like value numbers and to specifically let us know what exactly is changing, about how much, so we can know whether or not it's even worth like playing certain things or trying certain things, if that makes sense. Next up, we have Venusaur. Also getting a very similar treatment. Sludge Bomb, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increased. Good. Effects on opposing Pokemon strengthened. Okay. Also good. I'm assuming that means the poison effect. That's the only thing I can think of for like effects. Things like status elements and possibly slows and whatnot. If you don't know what a slow is reducing their movement speed, essentially. Slowing them down, essentially. So again, good buff. Just depends on that by how much they're strengthened. That's kind of, you're going to be noticing across the board on these patch notes. Is like a lot of these sound like good buffs or nerfs. The problem is by how much. If they're not enough, then it almost like doesn't matter. So we'll have to see. Venusaur's biggest problem, in my opinion, though, is the fact that it's kind of similar to Charizard, where it's like a lot of Venusaur's moves are required to be require you to be kind of close to the enemy. And certain moves like Solar Beam are a little slow too, in my opinion. My personal favorite move set for Venusaur is to go more of like the AoE build with Sludge Bomb, Petal Dance. That's what I prefer because I like to go for more of a zoning type strategy with Venusaur, where it's hard for the enemy to approach me because I'm using Petal Dance, and then I can like use Sludge Bomb in specific areas or on enemies in order to go for the poison and the impact damage, or I can try to like deter them from going in a certain area. Like if they're chasing me, they can toss a Sludge Bomb behind me, so that way they have to walk into the Sludge Bomb in order to continue chasing me. Otherwise, they have to walk around it to not do so and stuff like that. That sort of thing. So close quarters, kind of slow. And most of all, his damage isn't really as good as I would like it to be. I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing too. So we'll have to see. Petal Dance, move upgrade. I have no idea what this is supposed to mean. I don't know what this is supposed to mean. We'll have to find out. Solar Beam, cooldown reduce. Good thing. It means you can use it more, which might help offset how slow it is to use, if that makes sense. I kind of don't like the fact that you have to stay still to use Solar Beam. That's kind of probably my biggest problem with it. If they made it so you could at least continue moving while using Solar Beam, that might actually make Solar Beam kind of usable, in my opinion. His ultimate, the Unite move, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon is increased. This is a good thing because, again, like I said before, I feel like Venusaur as a whole just doesn't do enough damage. And his ultimate always feels really weird to use too. It feels like it doesn't work properly sometimes, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I don't know if it's maybe because of the fact that maybe I am hitting people, but it just doesn't do enough damage that I don't notice, or what, or if it actually misses. I have no idea. So I'm hoping this sounds good on paper. We'll have to see. Absol, basic attack, bug fixes. Okay. Not much to say there. Night Slash, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increased. Sucker Punch, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increased. This might be really good. Again, as a whole, it looks like they're kind of buffing most of the Speedsters in this patch notes, which is a good thing because, like I said before, at least in higher tier games, Speedsters as a whole are kind of left to the wayside, just because of the fact that their job can easily kind of just be done by an attacker for the most part. And sometimes an all-rounder, like Machamp. Or what's the other one? Lucario. You could easily have literally an attacker or all-rounder kind of do a Speedster's job for the most part. Especially if you're using, if you have the floating stone in your item build, that like you can kind of give yourself the movement speed that you need to kind of get around anyways. So it's like, yeah. So Absol, though, getting a damage buff might actually be more significant than you might expect, just because of the fact that Absol has the increased critical hit rate for his passive and a bunch of his moves. So this might actually be bigger than we might expect it. So this is definitely worth keeping an eye on. Next up, Wigglytuff. The following stats have been increased: defense, special defense, and HP. This is actually pretty massive. This is honestly pretty massive, because part of the problem with Wigglytuff, in my opinion, and in case anyone's not aware, I love playing the support Pokemon. I literally play all 3 support Pokemon, preferably Mr. Mime. I was literally a Mr. Mime main all the way up to Veteran, until low veteran class 1, essentially. Once I got to veteran class 1, it was really hard to kind of climb past that as Mr. Mime. And I was kind of forced to learn to play other characters, namely attackers and all-rounders. Just because of the fact that, like, most of the support Pokemon kind of struggle, aside from Eldegoss. And it's not really worth playing most of the Speedsters either. So I'm actually really happy for this buff right here. The biggest question is going to be how much again? By how much is it getting a buff? The biggest problem with Wigglytuff is that Wigglytuff is kind of a how should I word it? kind of a conflicting play style because of the fact that Charm kind of forces enemies to like approach you or attack you. Wigglytuff really, in a way, kind of plays like a tank where Wigglytuff wants to be the center of attention and like draw foes to them, especially with Sing. So like you draw them to you, and then you can like put them asleep with Sing, and then go for like a double slap or a dazzling gleam for big damage and stuff like that. But part of the problem is that because she's kind of drawing all the attention herself, she's very easy to get kind of like bursted down and just die. Or even if she does survive, she doesn't do enough damage mid to late game to actually like kill people or to actually like knock out Pokemon is probably the more proper term. So that's the biggest problem that I feel like Wigglytuff at. Wigglytuff is amazing early game. Like I love playing Wigglytuff early game because usually that's the time period where we're getting early knockouts, and whoever's in lane with me usually get very early scores on their goals. And it's not uncommon for us to be the first ones to take out their first goal post because of that. It's just that mid to late game that we really tend to struggle. And honestly, I feel like Wigglytuff, especially because of the fact that Wigglytuff kind of struggles in the team fights too, her ultimate, honestly, I think is pretty decent. The biggest problem I have with Wigglytuff's ultimate is the fact that it doesn't do enough. In my opinion. In case you're not aware, Wigglytuff's ultimate is basically full heal, the item full heal, the battle item full heal. It does the same effect, but for the whole team within the ultimate's radius. While also applying a shield to everybody on your team within your radius. So if it doesn't do enough just because of the fact that it's nice that you get a full heal to the whole team, but if the enemy team's not really running a whole lot of crowd control, then the CC almost kind of doesn't matter. In which case, you're only doing it for the shields. In which case, that's not really enough compared to like Eldegoss, for example, who heals and I think it gives shields. I want to say it gives shields, but it mainly heals. It heals and does damage. If Wigglytuff's ultimate at least would heal and give shields, it would be an amazing ultimate. Or if it at least did damage and gave shields, then it would actually be a pretty decent ultimate on top of having the full heal as kind of like a bonus. But because of the fact that it doesn't have that extra third thing to really make the ultimate like worthwhile, on top of the fact that it kind of struggles in team fights because it doesn't do enough damage and it's not survivable enough and during the team fights, Wigglytuff kind of struggles a little bit mid to late game. So hopefully these defense and special defense and HP buffs make kind of solve part of that issue where she's at least more survivable during the team fights. Double slap, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increase, effects on opposing Pokemon strengthen. So this just kind of literally addresses what I just mentioned, where she doesn't really do enough damage mid to late game. So hopefully this kind of fixes it. She becomes a little bit more usable mid to late game. Sing. In case you're not aware, Double Slap does apply a slow effect on enemy Pokemon that get hit by it. So I'm assuming that's what this means. The effects get strengthened. I don't know if that means that the slow effect it will be applied for a longer period of time, or if it will be a more stronger slow effect, like it'll slow them even more so faster type of thing. So we'll have to see what that means by that. Sing. Effects on opposing Pokemon strengthen. Again, same thing as the Double Slap. I don't know if that just means the duration or if that means how the intensity of the slow. Dazzling Gleam bug fixes. I'm not sure what bugs are related to that, so we'll have to see. Next up, Eldegoss Cotton Guard. That's the one that gives everyone the shields, and then if they still have the shield at the end of the duration of Cotton Guard, the shield will pop and actually heal you or that ally. The cooldown has been lengthened, and the HP restoration, the heal, has been decreased. So an overall net nerf, just a straight up nerf to Cotton Guard. As of right now, Eldegoss is pretty much the sole support that you can really run at higher tiers, higher ranks. Mr. Mime and Wigglytuff, as fun as they are, I really wish I could play more Wigglytuff in Mr. Mime because right now I'm kind of forced to be the main Eldegoss player on our teams most of the times. But as much as as good as Eldegoss is, I hate playing Eldegoss because it's really boring to play. Having to literally just sit back and just kind of pocket your main DPS, typically Cinderace, or another attack, or whoever your other main, like sub main carry is on your team. It's really boring to just kind of pocket them and just let them stay alive and like and let them do their thing. So I'm not against this. I'm not against Eldegoss being nerfed just so to help bring others to light. I just wish they would. I would kind of prefer if they buffed the other two supports instead more, because I feel like Eldegoss honestly is in a pretty decent state. She's not really that OP or overpowered. The only reason why most people considered Eldegoss like A or S tier is mostly the fact that Eldegoss is kind of the only one that does what she does. The other two supports don't actually like heal the teammates. They don't really provide shields for the teammates aside from like Wigglytuff's ultimate. So yeah, that's my biggest thing. They need to make the other two, Mr. Mime and Wigglytuff's support skills, be able to support better, if that makes sense. That's the biggest problem, is that Wigglytuff feels like the only true like support Pokemon, whereas the other two feel more like hybrids of other roles, if that makes sense. Mr. Mime feels more like a defender than some of the defender Pokemon. and Wigglytuff feels more. Let me reword that, because they both feel like tanks. Wigglytuff and Mr. Mime feel like tanks, but they do so in a different way. Mr. Mime feels more like a goalkeeper in that sense, where he's really good at like zoning out and like blocking certain areas and setting up like traps with the wall confusion wombo combo. Whereas Wigglytuff feels more of a like an MMO type tank, where you can like aggro all the attention to yourself and kind of taunt them towards you, and soak up the damage so that your teammates can kind of like group up and gank them, type of thing. So I think that's part of the problem. And Eldegoss is the only one that actually feels more like what you would expect from a support Pokemon, if that makes sense. So anyways, a bit of a rant. Cotton Spore. Cooldown reduced. This Cotton Spore, I think, is the Cotton Spore is the one, I believe, that's the opposite of Cotton Guard. Cotton Guard is that give the shield. Cotton Spore is the one that does like the little charge up thing and gives you like the increased movement speed and something else. I think it does damage to enemies too, or caught in the radius. So the cooldown has been reduced on that. The effects on opposing Pokemon is strengthened, so I'm assuming that means the slow that does an opposing Pokemon. I think it gives a slow. This move's defense, special defense increase has been strengthened. Okay, so it also gives defensive buffs. So it looks like they're trying to, in a way, make the Cotton Sport more usable and the Cotton Guard less OP. So it's not so. Eldegoss's moveset isn't completely one-sided on the shields and healing department, essentially. And Eldegoss's ultimate, the Unite move, the healing effect of it has been reduced. So it looks like they're trying to nerf healing across the board from Eldegoss, so that way it's not as much of a must pick, if that makes sense. So we'll have to see how much of a nerf in terms of the healing department this is going to actually make, in my opinion, because quite honestly, that's kind of the main reason. That's part of the biggest thing about like, how should I word it? We need to see how much it got nerfed, just like the rest of this list. Is it a little nerf? Because if it's only a little bit of an HP nerf, then like it's not going to be that big of a deal. But if it's a massive heal nerf, then like it might be big enough to almost say that Eldegoss might not be playable. So we'll have to see. The Cotton Guard is still good, I will have to say, just because of like the shield amount is still going to be the same. It's just the heals. The heals for the Cotton Guard is probably a little negligible. We don't have to worry about that as much. So the shields. So we'll have to see. We'll just have to see. I keep talking about it. Cinderace. This is actually a massive nerf. The following stats have been decreased. His attack stat, period, point blank, has been nerfed. So he has just less attack across the board. So that ranges from everything from his basic attack to all of his moves being less in damage too. Blaze Kick. The damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased. So Blaze Kick, on top of his base stats, the damage has been nerfed. So it's almost like a double nerf in terms of damage for Blaze Kick. Feint. Move downgrade. I'm not really sure what this is supposed to imply. I don't know what these move downgrades and upgrades mean in this stats. We'll have to see when the patch notes come out, or when the actual patch comes out. Pyro Ball, the actual like fireball kick that you do. Damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increase. I actually really like this one. Just because of the fact that I'm actually a really big fan of Fireball. Personally, I like to go Fireball whenever I have to play in lane. If I have like somebody playing a Speedster on my team, I let them go jungle so I can go lane. And just because of the fact that most Speedsters don't really do too well in a lane. They kind of have to jungle if they want to even like a shot at winning. So I'll typically go Pyro Ball. On top of the fact that I like being able to play at a safer distance. Typically, I have more of a mage play style type thing in most video games. So Pyro Ball really fits my play style. I can kind of, and especially because of the fact that it can hit multiple people as well too. There's a lot of team fights where I can literally just chuck a Pyro Ball and just hit all of them, and it does a good chunk of damage. So the fact that this is doing more damage and Blaze Kick is getting nerfed. So it's not as much of an assassination move, I think is a really good thing. My biggest question is because of the fact that this is getting increased, but Cinderace's attack stat is getting nerfed across the board. I wonder if these two will actually like kind of cancel each other out. So Pyro Ball will feel as a whole like it does right now. But the Blaze Kick, the little like the little dash thing that he does, that's gonna be doing way less damage. So this might be a big enough change where Cinderace might not be as viable as a jungler anymore. So we'll have to see. We'll have to keep an eye on it. It's possible that Cinderace can still jungle. It just won't be as effective as it is right now. Next up, we have Gengar. Gengar is getting his basic attacks, getting bug fixes. Okay. Shadow Ball, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increased. That's actually a good thing. Because honestly, part of the thing about Gengar is the fact that Gengar's almost, quite honestly, a one-trick pony. And in higher tiers, it gets really hard for a Gengar to really get value. Unless it's like you happen to catch someone off guard and you're like, oh, dang it, you got me. Because quite honestly, as long as you avoid the Sludge Bomb that gets you poisoned, as long as you avoid the Sludge Bomb, you're pretty much good. It's really, once you know what Gengar's trying to do, it's really easy to kind of shut down Gengar's game plan, essentially. If you see a Gengar in jungle, you just got to keep an eye on the map. That's it. You just got to keep an eye on the map, know where he is at all times. If you don't see him on the map, chances are he's in the jungle trying to gank someone, in which case you got to play safer, try and stay away from the grass in the jungle to avoid getting hit by a Sludge Bomb, essentially. And fun fact, you can actually see the circle where Sludge Bomb's going to land before he actually starts the animation. So as soon as you see the circle, you can just use eject button or any other type of movement ability for your Pokemon to just evade the circle, and then you won't get poisoned. In which case, if you're not poisoned, he can't use Hex on you to knock you out. On top of the fact that if you happen to be running the full heal item, you can easily, if you do happen to get poisoned, you just pop full heal as soon as he starts trying to like spam Hex, and he can no longer use Hex, in which case he's typically a sitting duck, and you and your teammate in your lane can kind of just gang up on him and knock him out. So that's kind of the biggest problem with Gengar in the higher tiers, is that because he's a one-trick pony, it's really easy to see him coming and kind of just deny him from using his wombo combo. So I like the fact they're buffing the Shadow Ball, because it feels like they're trying to introduce more more opportunities for a variety of different play styles for Gengar. So I like that. Whether or not it's going to be significant enough will remain to be seen. Hex is getting a move downgrade. Again, I don't know what this is supposed to mean. And Dream Eater is also supposed to be getting a move upgrade, which again, I don't know what this is supposed to mean. So we'll have to see when the patch comes out. Zeraora, the third speedster on this patch note. Is it the third? No, it's the fourth, I think. Because we saw Talonflame, we saw Gengar. I think we saw one more, right? Absol. Yeah, so literally all the speedsters are in this patch notes. Every single speedster has gotten some sort of patch note. His Spark, bug fixes. Okay. Wild Charge, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increase, cooldown reduced. I'm kind of scared of this. Now I'm not the biggest Zeraora player because I typically like to play supports, but I also play a lot of attackers too, as of right now. But I wouldn't be surprised with the Gengar readjustments. Essentially, they're trying to make the Hex Wombo combo not as prevalent. So you might see that, you'll be able to see that less in your games. On top of, they're trying to buff Talonflame's damage, so Talonflame will hopefully feel more of like an actual assassin. Absol also got a bit of damage buffs, so it's a bit more of an assassin jungling. They're all trying to, aside from the Gengar nerfs, I feel they're more of a nerf more than anything else. It feels like they're trying to make the speedsters better at their role to the point where attackers can't just do their job for them. I'm more so scared of Zeraora though, because out of all of the speedsters, aside from Gengar's one-trick Wombo combo, I feel like Zeraora is the best speedster overall. Just has way more utility across the board and movement too, for that matter. So I'm kind of scared of the fact that the cooldown has been reduced, so you can use the move more, and the damage has been increased. So we'll have to see how that goes. His ultimate, the Unite move, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased. Thank God. That ultimate is just so brutal a lot of times. The fact that like the radius around it, like he's like a walking zoning tool when he ults. On top of, he can like pounce around like crazy. It's absolutely crazy how good Zeraora can be in the right hands. It just sucks that like Pokemon's like Cinderace, at least as of right now, kind of like overshadow him just because how much damage Cinderace does. So I wouldn't be surprised that with the big Cinderace nerfs, on top of with a bunch of speedster nerfs, and Zeraora already kind of being the king as speedsters, in my opinion, aside from Gengar's Wombo combo, I feel like it's possible that speedsters might be viable now, especially Zeraora. Zeraora might just be the default jungler at this point, possibly. Again, we'll have to see by how big of a margin all these nerfs and buffs are. Cramorant, Whirlpool, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased. Okay. Dive, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increased. Interesting. So it's basically a readjustment of their damage. This will be interesting. I think they're trying to take away from the AoE aspect of Cramorant and try to invest more in these like pinpoint single target aspect of Cramorant, which makes more sense. Cramorant did come across to me as more of like really high damage Pokemon, but kind of difficult to use because it has to like land exactly. Your moves have to land exactly on the enemy Pokemon. So it's more like Cramorant feels more like a, how should you word it? Like a more high skill, high reward type Pokemon. But it requires way more skill compared to other Pokemon to get the same value. That's always been kind of like my problem with Cramorant. So I feel like this might not be quite the change we want. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I don't think it's that big of a deal though. Machamp, basic attack bug fixes. All right. Cross Chop, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon decreased. Ooh, this will be interesting. Close combat, damage dealt to opposing Pokemon increase as well. So, oh, this was increase. This is decrease. Gotcha. This is gonna be interesting. I actually kind of like this because honestly, cross chop did feel was kind of insane. Not only is it a dash, so it helps you kind of like initiate or chase after Pokemon if needed. But I believe the cross chop also applied a critical hit rate buff or something like that. Something to do with critical hits. Which I thought was just crazy. It did decent damage and it like buffed critical hits. I'm like, that's crazy. So the fact that they're nerfing that, I think is fair. Close combat being damage increased, I think is also really good because I always did feel like whenever I use close combat, it almost like didn't matter. The only thing the close combat had going for it was the fact that made you immune to hindrances while using the move. That was the only thing I thought was like good about the move. But the fact that like it just never felt impactful when using it, it just felt bad to use. So hopefully they increase the damage enough for close combat that it actually feels, especially since like it's such a close combat is basically just like a smaller version of your ultimate, or your unite move as Machamp. The big like multi-fist attack, the oro for any anime fans out there, JoJo reference. The fact that in the current version of the game, it just felt like how cool the animation is. It just didn't do anything. That's how it feels like, anyways. So hopefully this is the damage has been buffed enough where it actually feels like you're doing damage, where you can actually maybe like incentivize the enemy to like back off, type of thing. So I'm hoping, we'll see. Lucario, the power up punch bug fixes. All right, Bone Rush bug fixes. Doesn't really tell us anything. Greninja basic attack bug fixes. Alolan Ninetales Snow Warning, the passive bug fixes. So those ones I don't think matter too much. We'll have to see. They don't really tell us what bug fixes got changed. Again, that's probably the biggest thing I have with these patch notes is that they don't really give you too much specifics. They give you very general idea of what's in the patch notes, and I kind of hate that. Hopefully when the game actually, or when the patch actually comes out, maybe there'll be more specific patch notes in the game. I'm starting to think not though, especially since like they give you how their Pokemon stats in the form of stars, like how many stars tells you like how good their stats are and stuff like that. And they don't really give you damage numbers either, unless you go to the practice range and actually like sit there and shoot the substitution training dummy. To actually get like damage numbers. So the fact that they're so general, I hate it, especially coming from like other live service like PvP multiplayer games, where they're very specific in their patch notes, so you get an accurate idea of like what's still good, what's still not good, what needs some experimenting with. Whereas in this current version, in this wording, I guess, you literally have to like, it feels like you have to playtest everything to get an idea. And I don't quite like that. But anyways, other than that, hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what your thoughts are about the patch notes. If you enjoyed the video and would like to see more updates on Pokemon Unite, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Would highly appreciate it. Leave a like in the video. Leave a comment about your thoughts. All the things above really help out the channel. I'm planning to make more content shortly coming, especially in regards to my thoughts on a bunch of different tier lists and Pokemon builds as well, to help any of you guys out who are probably struggling in the lower ranks, and even some guides, especially for popular characters like Mr. Mime. Like I said, I love Mr. Mime. I literally one-trick Mr. Mime up to veteran. But once I hit veteran, like people, it's too hard to play Mr. Mime to really make him work. So I could probably make guides like that on how to at least like get good with him up until like a certain point. So anyways, other than that, you guys have a great one. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, y'all.